Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. In today's lecture we're going to talk about cash flow forecasting finally. What is cash flow forecasting? How do we use that? As well as we're going to look at basic structures of cash flow forecast and do some calculations with that. So without further ado, let's begin. Cash flow forecasting is basically an estimate of the future cash inflows and cash flows outflows of a business. So we've talked about what is cash flow. Cash flow is the basic flow of money in and out of the business. That is your business cash inflows and outflows. So cash flow forecasting is basically an estimate of these inflows and outflows of a business, and it is generally done over a period of time. Let's say in months. Okay, month one, month two, month three. Let's say a half year or a full year. So that's how they estimate what will happen, how much cash inflows they expect, and how much cash outflows they expect, and based on that they can see if there is going to be some cash flow problems, if their business is going to make some profit or not, and how much cash will the business have to pay for its other, how much cash will the business be left over with, so that it can use it for profits, etc. And also we go look at if there are some cash problems, is it possible to take some loans or look for some other sources of finance to cover up the loss. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at over here. It helps to identify sources and amount of cash coming in the business. Okay, that's your cash inflows. Basically it's sales, either credit sales or cash sales, and destination and amounts of money cash going out of the business, usually made for a year or quarter in advance. So when we say destination, it means like where is the cash being used when it's going out of the business. That it means when it's going out of the business, that means expenses. So what is the particular expense and the amount associated with that particular expense that is taking place. So let's say for rents there is going to be some other amount, for labor there is going to be some amount, for giving back loans, for repaying loans there's going to be some amount, for purchasing supplies there's going to be some amount, and there's going to be different amounts for different expenses. That's the whole point of it. It is used as an early warning system, okay, as it identifies the potential shortfalls in cash balance in advance. It already knows, okay, if there's going to be some shortfall in cash balance, so the business can make necessary preparations to avoid it. So yeah, as I discussed earlier, that if you know that there's going to be some cash flows, you can take some loans or some other sources of finance, or try to reduce your expenditure. So it helps to plan how much and when to borrow. Plans can also be made to reduce expenditure or increase cash inflows by discontinuing credit sales when high outflows are forecasted. So if you know that there's going to be high expenses taking place, there's going to be a lot of money going out of the business, so you want to increase the money coming into the business as well to balance it out. So what you can do by that time is by discontinuing credit terms, or like reducing the credit period to customers, so you have your cash as quick as possible. External stakeholders such as banks may require cash flow forecast to give loans. Okay, so they know that, okay, that's a good well drafted cash flow forecast, the business seems promising that they will have enough inflows to pay for the loans, and they need a certain loan to pay for the outflows for a negative net cash flow. So that's why they are asking for loans, but after some time the net cash flow will be positive, so it's okay, we should give them the cash. So investors may also require it to see if it's worth investing or not. Okay, so it overall explains how effectively is the business going to manage its cash, what are the problems that's going to arise, and how does the business encounter that. It is a vital requisite for a business startup and development. So when you are starting a business or developing, you need cash flow forecast to see what sort of expenses you will need to incur, and how you can deal with that. New businesses planning require cash flow forecast to help identify future problems, inspire confidence in lenders, helps to obtain funding, and helps new businesses to survive in the short term. So that's the basic summary of why do we use cash flow forecasting, and how is it used? Why do we use it and how is it used? So let's look at an example of cash flow forecast. Here I've taken this from a past paper question. So similar cash flow forecast you might be asked, generally 6 month is most common in past papers. So there's month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5, okay, on the vertical axis, vertical column, and we have a horizontal one where we have cash inflows, cash outflows, the opening balance, and a closing balance. So let's look at each component in detail. Cash inflows I've highlighted in blue over here. That is basically your revenue only. Revenue is the only source of finance, but this in turn can also be divided into your credit sales and your cash sales. But over here it's not there, but in the next lecture we also want to look at that as well. Cash outflows is basically they have given you certain cash outflows. There could be more, there could be less. It varies business to business, but they have given you over here that there's a new computerized inventory system. There's the cost for that, and there's employee cost. There's purchases that they are making, maybe your stocks and your marketing. Okay, so all of these costs that they have noted down. Then there's opening balance. What is opening balance? Opening balance for each month is what is the cash that the business had previously. So before all these expenses or inflows, business basically had this opening balance. So this opening balance, this is $1,500, is what is perhaps your owner's savings maybe, or some bank loans. Okay, they just have this opening balance. You don't necessarily need to know the first opening balance. Where do they get it from? Okay, so it's basically either from your bank loans or your business's own savings, but it is there. So okay, so you have this first one over here. Then you have the next opening balance. Okay, this over here, this, all these are what is left in the previous month. Okay, so this one was of course before anything took place. We don't need to know how we got this one, first one. The information is not necessary, but we need to know how we got the the other ones. Okay, so in the next month we got $7, as you can see over here. Okay, this is the closing balance of month 1 is the opening balance of month 2. Closing balance of month 2 is the opening balance of month 3. Okay, you can see there's a little trend over here. So let's just look at some calculations before explaining more about this opening and closing balance. So cash inflows and cash outflows, we know what's that. Cash inflows are basically how cash come in. Cash outflows identify what is the cash going out of the business. Over here they have not written more information about that, but we can write that as well. I'm going to show you summarize this whole cash outflow in one part. Okay, just wait. Okay, so as you can see over here we have our cash outflows, the sum of all cash outflows that take place. Okay, 10 plus 3 13 plus 5 18 plus 2 20, so that's over here 20. Then 3 plus 4 plus 2, that's 9, same, and 2 plus 2 plus 1, that's 5. So I've summarized that over here. Generally we do that always, it's a good practice. Okay, but since we are not constructing it, the cash flow forecast, we don't need to know that. We are just shown a cash flow forecast, but for your own understanding, for your own better calculations, it is better that you just add up all these cash outflows and put them in one particular line. So that's your total cash outflows. Okay, you can put them over here. Let's just say these are your total cash outflows. Okay, so I moved that down over here so we have better clear view of that. So that these are our total cash outflows. That's $20,000, $9,000, $9,000, $9,000, and $5,000. So those are your total cash outflows. It's a better practice, so as it helps you in your calculations. So the basic formula for net cash flow is your cash inflows minus your cash outflows gives you your net cash flow. So let's show that. I'll show you that as well. So here you have your net cash flow as well. How do we go to cash flow? Net cash flow was calculated by cash inflows minus cash outflows. So 12 minus 20, we got 8. Negative values are generally indicated with brackets, as you can see over here, so we are also going to use brackets. Then we have 10 minus 9, we got $1,000. Then 9 minus 9, that's 0. Then 5 minus 9 is minus 4. 4 minus 9 is minus 5. And x minus 5 we don't know, so we'll write y. Or if you want, you can write it in a better way. I'll show you. This is a better way of writing that. So your x minus 5 is your net cash flow for month 6. So adding all these information is necessary, not necessary, but it's recommended when you are, if you have to make a cash flow forecast, you need to have cash inflows, total cash inflows, total cash outflows, your net cash flow, your opening balance and your closing balance. All these 5 elements need to be there: net cash flow, opening balance, closing balance, cash inflows, cash outflows. Okay, but over here, since it was already given, we just calculated all this information, as it will help us calculate x. Okay, or but just generally now I did it for better understanding. So now we have our cash outflows, net cash inflow. How do we got a closing balance? Closing balance we got by opening balance plus net cash flow. So whatever that was left previous month plus what's the net cash flow of this month, you add that up, you have your closing balance for that particular month. So in month 1 we got a sales revenue of $12 and cash outflows of $20. Okay, let's just say $12 was our inflows, $20 was our outflows, 12 minus 10 we got minus 8. Okay, and 15 minus 8 we got $7. Okay, as you can see over here, I'm just gonna add up our opening balance and our net cash flow to show you this closing balance. Okay, 7 plus 1 we got 8, 8 plus 0 we got 8, 8 minus 4 we got 4, 4 minus 5 we got minus 1, and minus 1 minus x minus 5 we got, sorry, x minus 5 minus 1 we got this. So basically our closing balance for this month is going to be x minus 6. Okay, I'll just write that over here as well, that closing balance is what? 1 is equal to x minus 6. How we got minus 6? Well, x minus 5 was a net cash flow. Okay, over here x minus 5, then opening balance was minus 1. So x minus 5 minus 1 is x minus 6. But let's just erase that for now. I'll show you that later on when we do our calculations. So I hope for up to now you know how do we get our cash flows, how we calculate, how we first display the information. We need to know cash inflows, we need to know total cash outflows, we need to know our net cash flow. Then using that information we calculate closing balance for each month and opening balance as well. How do we go to opening balance? Now this, both of these formulas can be summarized with this. Okay, you don't always need to know net cash flow, but of course it's a good habit of drawing that. But if you want to calculate in just one go, you can just use this particular formula, that is inflows minus outflows, that will give you net cash flow. Add that with your opening balance, you have your closing balance. But now let's talk about the relationship between closing balance and opening balance. So look over here, I'm just removed of information right now, so we don't need that right now. So opening balance, as you can see, the closing balance of month n, that is any month, is the opening balance of month n plus 1, where n is a positive integer. So month 1's closing balance, $7, is the opening balance of month 2. Month 2's closing balance is the opening balance of month 3. As I said over here, that closing balance of month 1 is the opening balance of month 2, which is 1 plus 1. Closing balance of 2 is the opening balance of month 3, that is 2 plus 1. Okay, so n was over here 2, that's how we got 2 plus 1, 3. So that's the general idea you need to know. The closing balance of month 1 is the opening balance of month 2. This information and this information, this both of these formula you have your this part over here, and that's it. You can calculate your x value, you can calculate any missing information over here. Over here in this question we need to calculate x over here, that is the opening balance, not the opening balance, the cash inflows of month 6. So let's use so we have x, let's calculate x. I use this formula, cash closing balance equals to opening balance plus inflows minus outflows. Place the values over here, 1 minus 1 x, 2 plus 2 plus 1. Just use that simple arithmetic. 1 equals to x minus 6, that means x equals to 1 plus 6, so x equals to 7. If there was a little voice issues just in the previous 10 to 20 seconds, I apologize for that. I had to edit this video a little bit because max time was reached. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and Allah Hafiz. In the next video we're also going to look at other cash flow forecasts. Allah Hafiz.